Parliament approves 2023 budget and economic policy of government pending the passage of estimates for the various MMDAs and the passage of the appropriation bill.
The House has accordingly approved the budget statement and economic policy of the government for the year ending 31st December 2023.
We have details from a spirited last day of debate by both the majority and minority leaders.
We in the NDC minority group will fiercely resist and fight the imposition of this additional tax on Ghanaians.
So the 2.5% increase in the VAT, you have been told, primarily is going to be used for road construction.
Ghana Medical Association serves notice of a disruptive industrial action unless government exempts workers' pension funds from the haircut. But government is warning investors to accept or crash. In our series tracking One District, One Factory, we go to the town of Jankobia, where a ginger preservation factory sits in ruins whilst farmers incur post-harvest losses. Hello again, my name is Ernest Kojo Manu. Many thanks for choosing us. Parliament has approved the 2023 budget. Government has avoided a repeat of events of last year when the one-sided minority house rejected the 2022 budget and economic policy of government, a decision which was later overturned. This time round, despite a budget debate dogged by low numbers on both sides, the majority managed to get enough MPs on their side just in time to approve the statement, which was read to the House by the embattled Finance Minister 2 weeks ago. Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kwekwa Santi has the rest of the story.
There were concerns that government may not be able to secure enough votes to pass the budget, given the low attendance, especially on the side of the majority, that characterized the debate on the budget. But the whips got to work, and the last day of debate, there were enough MPs on the floor. Prior to the vote, Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu concluded the debate for the minority, castigating President Akufo-Addo and his embattled Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, who he accused of mismanaging the economy.
To say that our country, Ghana, is in crisis, an economic crisis, a deep crisis, is an understatement. President Nana Addo Dankwa must gather courage and take full responsibility. 2.5% increase. And Mr. Speaker, without going further, we in the NDC minority group will fiercely resist and fight the imposition of this additional tax on Ghanaians.
The majority leader, Osei Chairman Sabonsu, fought back.
So the 2.5% increase in the VAT, you have been told, primarily is going to be used for road construction. If you don't want your roads to be constructed, tell us.
It was now time for a vote.
At the conclusion of the debate, as many as are in favor of the motion, say aye. Those against, say no.
And it appeared the first vote did not convince the Speaker. The question was put again, and this time the majority had it, according to the Speaker of Parliament.
Honorable members, I put the question again. Those in favor of the motion, say aye. Those against, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The House has accordingly approved the budget statement and economic policy of the government for the year ending 31st December 2023.
With the budget statement and economic policy having now been passed by Parliament, it is expected that the various committees will now get to work in considering the estimates that have been made to the various ministries, departments, and agencies. From next week, these committees of Parliament will be expected to present their report on these work that they've done on the various MDAs and recommend the approval. So this is done, the Appropriation Act will now be passed before Parliament goes on break on the 21st of December. Reporting for Joy News, Kweku Asante, Parliament House, Accra.
Meanwhile, Deputy Ranking Member on the Finance Committee, Isaac Adongo, is urging bondholders who will be affected by government domestic debt restructuring to sue the government to enforce their rights.
Unilaterally sit in your office, shred those agreements, and illegally and arrogantly compel people to accept what you want. We are all aware that since yesterday, our financial sector has become inundated by customers calling in and some actually rushing there, thinking that something untoward was happening to their money. Today, I want to appeal to all bondholders and investors to exercise caution and spare our financial sector from any further pressure. But I want to announce today that it is quite clear from the Attorney General that this was not the action of government. It is the action of Ken Oforiatta and not the government. It is not possible for Cabinet to approve a transaction that the Chief Legal Officer, the Attorney General, says is illegal. So Ken is on his own. He already collapsed our banking sector. He collapsed our savings and loans and our microfinance institutions. He's already collapsed the capital market where liquidity dried out way back in 2021. For several years, we've been trying to build a capital market that is respected and lawful. What he has done today is to set us back 20 years in our fight to build a resilient and a respected legal capital market. We will resist this, and as at yesterday, I have been supported by a team of financial analysts and investment bankers who are poring over the over 64 bond categories that were issued. And very soon, I will present to you the level of damage in people's investment that has occasioned this announcement. But also, we are ready with my team to support any group of investors and bondholders who agree to come together for a class action to sue the Minister for Finance and to sue the government to reverse this decision. We are also exploring the opportunities that are available to ensure that investors are able to support government in an exchange program that meets the requirement of investors and government.
You are on your own if you refuse to accept government's debt exchange program. That's the message from the Finance Ministry to all institutional bondholders who refuse to accept government haircuts to their interests. Now, bondholders like pension funds, banks, and insurance firms will have to exchange their bonds for one that will earn 0 interest next year. The new bonds will only begin to earn 5% interest in 2024 and later 10% for the rest of the tenor. The maturity dates have also been extended, with the first bonds only maturing in 2027. Some of the institutions are already rejecting this offer. Speaking on PM Express, Deputy Finance Minister John Kumar said all investors have 10 days to sign on to the debt exchange program.
Initially, some will express reservations, but when you explain to them and the enormity of the problem and where we are and how we can all get out better, most of them agree, and I believe that we're going to have...
So what happens, because it's voluntary, right? What happens to those institutions who refuse to sign on?
Okay, so then you don't get the carrots, the benefits, the buffers that is provided. And then you're on your own. It means that you are open to default in terms of if the market is unable to redeem, fine. Like you said, you may even go to court because of the default.
Yeah, they can sue you.
Yeah, you can sue. But in the end, if you sue a man of straw in a broken system, what benefits are you hoping to gain? So it is better we work together and then we support each other to get out of the difficulty. And I believe many of them will be understanding these arrangements. And we'll continue to engage them and let them be rest assured that we stand to gain better together than to fight over these matters.
So, but there's also an alternative.
Yes.
And you also mentioned, where you are allowed as a state to use a parliamentary process or through legislation.
Yeah, the coercive approach.
Yes.
Yeah, we know.
Have you considered that?
Yes, but we don't want to use that approach because, like you said, these bondholders are known. And these are players in our economy over a long time. And they will continue to play in the Ghanaian economy. Whether you're a pension fund or whatever bank or whatever, you still need a strong Ghanaian economy for your future profitability. So these are difficult times, and we all need to come to an agreement that let's give up something and save the system for ourselves. I believe a better engagement, an orderly, amicable engagement will yield us better than the coercive approach. For now, that is how government thinks it has to go about it.
So when are you hoping to have clarity on which institutions have signed on before you close this?
At the end of the... No, there's an announcement of, I think it's 10 days or so for interested bondholders to sign.
Well, the opposition to this debt exchange program is growing. The Ghana Medical Association is the latest to join the queue, and they have a statement out today, serving notice threatening to disrupt the industrial harmony in the country if government fails to exempt pension funds from haircut or any debt restructuring. That's it on your screen there. The Ghana Medical Association is troubled and alarmed by the negative impact that the debt exchange program announced by the finance minister will have on workers' pensions in particular and healthcare delivery in the country. It is instructive to note that Tier 2 and Tier 3 pension contributions held and managed by the various pension schemes, especially public sector pension schemes, are very heavily exposed, that's over 90%, to government bonds, including ESLA and Dachi bonds. It continues to say that the cut in bond interest, no coupon payment for 2023, and the spread of principal repayment as announced will result in significant job losses or loss in value of our pensions in real terms over the next 5 to 15 years and beyond. With a maximum bond interest of 10% starting from the third year, our investment in government bonds will return a negative real return recovery at a time that inflation goes above, anytime inflation goes above 10%. Now, the government aims for a single digit inflation in the medium to long term. Historically, that has been very difficult to achieve in Ghana, even in the best of economic years. So they go on to state what they will do if government fails to heed their demand. Let's go to the phone lines now and speak to General Secretary of the GMA, Dr. Titus Bayo. Mr. Bayo, I'm grateful for your time here on Joy News Prime. From the statement that you've issued and from all that we've had in the last 24 hours, I believe it is very clear to you that we really do not have an option as far as this is concerned, even though it has been tagged voluntary. Is that very clear to the GMA?
No, it's not clear to us in that direction. Good evening to your viewers. And I'm saying it's not clear to us because why are we here? That's the first question. And I get the drift when anytime this question is asked, people say we are here, but we are here, so let's find a solution. As physicians, we are not trained that way. We must make a diagnosis and establish the etiology, and then based on that, we find a solution. Why are we here? That explanation hasn't come. Granted, now, if we are in this difficult situation, what level of engagement, consultation, what options have we looked at and to show that this is the only way out? And now, assuming that this is the only way out, because we need to get the IMF bailout and all of that, we are saying that government can still look at the situation and add some exemptions. They have exempted individual bond holders. We are asking government to review this situation and exempt pension funds as well as companies involved directly in healthcare, like health insurance companies. Because the consequence of these people having their bonds rated for a whole year will mean that there will be liquidity challenges. And even when the buffer system was mentioned, we hear specifically for financial institutions, we do not know whether these health insurance companies we are talking about, who are not pension companies, whether they are covered or not. So the level of engagement leaves much to be desired. And then, if we say we are all in this, we expected government to show that they recognize that by starting internally, pruning the size of government, to show us that we are in difficult times. They should start the austerity measures themselves. We cannot all be in a problem that we do not know how the problem was caused. Somebody borrowed excessively and that resulted in the problem. And when it comes to working our way through the problem, the person who was not involved in the borrowing is the one who suffers most.
If the challenge for you is mainly liquidity as far as the health sector is concerned, but also the pensions, government says a fund will be set up to help support institutions that may adversely affected or be the worst hit as far as this restructuring is concerned. That is the solution to that extreme, consequence as far as this debt restructuring is concerned.
What is the value of that fund? And can that fund, wherever that money is coming from, can that be used to grant exemptions these companies are talking of? What is the value of that fund? You see, when you communicate in crisis, you communicate in a way to get the understanding buy-in. And it's not only what you say, what you do also matters. Right. And it's the reason why I'm saying that government should demonstrate that they recognize that we are in crisis by reducing the size of government, cutting government expenditure, and also let us sit around the table and talk. If you say you are setting up a fund, no one knows how much is going to be in that fund. You have mentioned that it's to support financial institutions. I have asked a question. There are people who may not appear directly as financial institutions, but may have the challenges. Would they benefit from this fund?
Well, government has indicated that subsequently, Dr. Bayo, details will be made available. But you threaten that you're going to take some, action, industrial action that would disrupt the harmony already in the in industry. I guess you're saying that you're going to lay down your tools. How is that going to address the problem? Isn't that going to exacerbate the already worsening condition, even for the health sector, especially while we have a health service, a health insurance system that is not as effective as it should be, and many people are suffering under the current regime?
Well, the interpretation of a disturbance of the industrial harmony to meaning laying down of the tools is your interpretation. That's not our interpretation.
So how exactly do you mean, sir?
We are listening to our members. We are consulting broadly. When we are done, whatever our members ask us to do, we would. But when we say the industrial harmony will be disturbed, it would if we get to that point, because if you are partners, social partners, and you have a challenge, you meet your partner, you explain the situation, and then you judge and find a solution. You don't package a solution, come and tell us, this is my solution, take it or leave it. That is not partnership. So if government wants us to partner government to find a solution, come to us with an open mind. Tell us the problem. This is what has happened. How do we solve it? Let us make our suggestions. As little as they may look, for all you know, we may come up with something that may be a brilliant idea that can take us out of this situation. We are asking for specific exemptions. Can government look at it? But if we say take it or leave it, that means the partnership is not going as it's supposed to be. You are taking unilateral decisions. Therefore, when the other side takes unilateral decisions, you cannot blame them either. But as it is now, we have not said we are laying down our tools. We said we may take series of activities that may disturb the industrial harmony, and that will be directed by what our members tell us.
Well, we'll wait and see what becomes of the engagement with government subsequently, and then we'll hear from the GMA again. I'm grateful, Dr. Bayo, that you could join us. That's the General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association. And there are renewed calls on President Akufo-Addo to reshuffle non-performing ministers to restore confidence in the economy. The calls come in the wake of the rising inflation, labor agitations, and an all-time low downgrade of the economy by rating agencies. Majority Leader Oseche Mensah-Bonsu earlier this year suggested a reduction in the number of ministers to reduce the pressure on the public purse. Now, the former president, John Agyekum Kufuor, speaking with the Institute of Economic Affairs, IEA, at his Peduase residence Monday, said the president must be bold to reshuffle average ministers.
I didn't reshuffle just for the frequency of it. No. Any shifts I made, like I mentioned, Mrs. Hasna, I liked her so much. May she rest in peace. And she helped me so much when I was canvassing to become president. Western region, she ran a small loan scheme herself before we came to power. And in a way she contributed towards establishing Maslow. And so when we got into power, I said, women and children, and she was trying to do it. But along the way, I saw that she wasn't pulling the support I expected from the ladies, the women. When I say ladies, I mean the women generally. And especially the younger women, she was a bit aged. So I sensed, and I wanted the young people to get enthused with our efforts. So I looked, and then I will mention her name. The one who is Ghana's ambassador to America now, Halima, young, smart. I saw that she would bring on board the young people, the women generally. So I said, perhaps Mrs. Asma would be more effective going to the fisheries to open the place up for us. So that's how I did the reshuffle. And Halima came on board, and I think Halima it seemed to be making the impact with the young people. The women generally, we were talking, fighting teenage pregnancies and all those things. So perhaps the younger people. So that's the rationale.
Senior political science lecturer at the University of Ghana, Dr. Asa Asante, said, given the direction of government to sign the IMF program, President Akufo-Addo should do the needful and relieve non-performing ministers of their duty.
All important exercise that need to be carried out religiously and from time to time. Why do we reshuffle? The more important reason is that you want performance, because every government, at the end of the day, you go to the people to renew your mandate, and you go there on grounds that you have worked, for which reason you need what? A renewal of your mandate. So if you don't reshuffle your team, they will not be able to deliver. It doesn't matter how loyal they will be. If the person is an incompetent person, you don't hesitate at all to crack the whip and throw that person out. If you see this government, it has a lot of difficulty. We haven't seen, we've seen very few reshuffled, one or two. But we are where we are simply because of poor performance and other factors. So if the president continues to say that, yes, my, ministers are performing and all that, you and I know that that is not the case on the ground. It is a necessary end that we get some of the ministers changed. So that now that we are going for IMF World Bank facility, we need a change. We are going to have a change in policy direction. And one of the reasons why you reshuffle is one, you are going to change policy, the direction of policy. And that means that you bring in people who have the expertise, the experience, the knowledge, the wherewithal to be able to deliver the goods that you need to be able to survive this turbulent, system.
A section of the public who spoke to John News here in Accra agree with the former president.
The system is very hard, and the government has to just wake up and do something about it so that everybody should feel comfortable and live in a safe way.
What should think about sacking some ministers and reshuffling?
Oh, for me, I don't think that thing have like can make sense about anything. You see, because when you even sack the minister, the one who will come, do you know how things are going to be again? So they just have to manage it and just take a good care of the economy. Then we should move on. Okay, thank you.
My view on it is that the former president was giving his experience during his tenure, right? So it is an advice to this president to do the needful, right? If you feel that some of the ministers are not performing, you have to change them. You must let them go so that we get fresh ideas and fresh personnel to handle the situation or to handle the circumstances of the country.
I think on the issue of shuffling or reshuffling the ministers, it has come at a good time. It is not to say that these ministers are underperforming, but to say that the current strain on the economy has necessitated that somebody else with a different perspective takes over. So to that extent, I would say it's a laudable initiative. But this should also be merit-based. It shouldn't be that because we want to reshuffle the ministers, anybody at all should be given an appointment. We are looking out for people who have key competencies in key areas, who have proven beyond reasonable doubt over the years that they have what it takes to hold the fort.
Deputy Finance Minister Dr. John Kumah, in response to calls for government to cut down the size of government, said the administration has made significant expenditure cuts already in the 2023 budget.
We've done a lot of expenditure cuts in 2023. In fact, we have 36 expenditure measures that is cutting down expenditure in the 2023 budget. But the point I want to make is that this debt exchange program or the domestic bond exchange program we are doing is necessary but not sufficient. So we need to do more to be able to bring down the debt to the 55% that we are talking about. So of course, fiscal policy and other interventions from government will all contribute. So we are not just only looking at how we treat the bonds, but we are going to match that with other fiscal interventions from government to be able to achieve the target.
You're watching Joy News Prime with me, Ernest Kojo. Still to come in our series, Tracking One District, One Factory, we go to the town of Jankoba, where a ginger preservation factory sits in ruins, whilst farmers incur post-harvest losses.
Yeah, I don't know. And question issue. And the man so a boy momo peno, and no more de my any idea.
In the Ashanti regional town of Jankoba, one of Ghana's largest ginger production hubs, continue to incur post-harvest losses as a promised ginger preservation factory sits in ruin. The ginger preservation factory, promised under the 1D1F program in 2020 for the farming community, sits amongst weeds while the farmers apply conventional methods, which is yielding less profits. Law FM's Nana Buache Dankwa was in the community to interact with farmers and I come through with this report.
Ginger is undeniably important in every household. Here in Jankoba, it is cultivated by everybody. In its production to sale, there are challenges. We are here to interact with farmers on the numerous challenges they are facing in the cultivation of ginger.
Jankoba, a community in the Achimangwa district, has a farmer population of about 29,000, representing 52% females and 48 males. The community is regarded as the largest production hub of ginger, with production estimated at 260 metric tons yearly. In 2020, government commissioned a ginger factory under its 1D1F initiative for farmers here to preserve the chunk of ginger produced. The factory now sits abandoned and covered in weeds. Ezekiel Opon, a ginger farmer at Jankoba, has been in the farming business for a decade now. The 26-year-old points out some significant losses the community is making due to the inability to make the factory operational.
And the man so a boy momo peno, and a more de my any yard, Senka, Mimu, in Kayani, yard, dear, Casabia, Tony, and the Begisi. And I'm safe for be any honor, you could to bear mana and a motocook myself, a booby on Pibia and a modemay, and so a cow. Oh, you overdo and Cabeboy, any equiaf, Nanka, Tophonus, or Boa.
Farmers in the community says lack of a factory to help preserve the ginger is hampering production and their financial gains. Kofi Asare, who has been into the supply of ginger, is worried.
So I can do 100 cedis here, or about 80 cedis, 70 cedis. And I'm saying, oh, what you hear the Kenti. Now this I can do a day. I just born now. And yesterday, I said, the Oyama and Obayabino, only being so my day. A fixed price, just like Emfa Bobby and to Homa, I can do say, maybe I can do it. Bag could be a Yantono 5,500,000 cedis.
District Chief Executive Officer Michael Amoa says government is aware of the plight of these farmers. He attributes the delay in reopening the factory for use to the current economic challenges. He pleads with government to institute a fixed price policy for farmers and consumers.
The factory is in place. You may have visited the place and seen for yourself. But what is left is power. The equipment, everything have been procured. What is left is the hooking the facility to the national grid, and that is what has been awarded on contract. So just last week, the contractors were here to take the measurement and everything. So hopefully, by the next time that you visit, the extension of the power to the facility would have been started.
So this is the newly established Jankoba Ginger Factory through government's public-private partnership. The District Chief Executive Officer says it is at the state of electrification. Now the factory in no time will start its operation for ginger processing. Reporting for Joy News, Nana Boache Dankwa Yadom.
And school children at the Adregano Adma Primary School are scared of going to school. This is because their school building is not safe. The school has developed deep cracks and could collapse anytime. Aisha Ibrahim visited the school and reports the children are pleading with government to attend to their needs with urgency.
From afar, everything looks good at the Adregano Adma Primary School in Accra. But a closer look shows a deeper problem. The building is almost falling apart. Deep cracks have developed in the school building. The cracks can be seen at the base all the way to the middle and even to the upper part of the building. School children at the Adregano Adma Primary School are scared.
So this structure, I'm told, used to house classes 4 and 6 and also the ICT laboratory. Right now, this structure has been completely abandoned because the teachers and students say it has become a death trap. Now, the new structure in which they've been moved has also become a death trap because they say there are cracks in the building and cracks on top of the roof.
Cornelius Akpese and Samira Mohammed say they are reluctant to go to school because they fear the school building will collapse on them.
I can say the building is already collapsed because if we hear something break down like shouting, then we realize that maybe it's the building that want to collapse on us. So we try to run away from the class to come outside so that the building will not fall on us.
The children say anytime it rains, studies come to a halt.
Sometimes when our teacher is teaching, the water drips on her from the cracks.
So usually when it's raining, how do you cope?
Sometimes we have to push our desks to the veranda so that the water won't drip on us. So sometimes when our teacher is teaching, we have to stop. She has to stop teaching so that we'll come here.
When it rains, all the compound becomes wet and water fills the whole compound. So this disturbs the students in the school a lot. Especially when we are going to class, because there's muddy and all those can stuff the stuff in our shoes. So when we get into the class, we go into the class with mud. And at times too, the school becomes like a swimming pool. So we suffer a lot in this school.
They want the government to, as a matter of urgency, address the problem before it gets out of hand. Mr. Joseph Omari lives behind the school. He says the dilapidated nature of the school keeps him awake at night.
What I see in this area is not very good at all. Our kids are suffering. Always the snake wanted to follow them at the school side. That is why I used to become annoyed. If the rain fall heavy, I used to pass up there. The building is shaking. Definitely, it's shaking.
Teachers in the school say the situation is making teaching and learning difficult. So until the government comes to the aid of these poor ones, Cornelius, Samira, Frank and their colleagues will have no option but to continue to study in this death trap. Aisha Ibrahim, Joy News, Adriga no Adma Primary School.